Okay, everyone. Next, we have Greg McCallum speaking. He's known as the no bullshit startup mentor and commercial advisor. Greg works with founders, founding teams, and senior operators globally to assist with launching, scaling, and/or improving their startups and scale-ups. Greg has a background in running high-performance global sales and marketing teams, executive leadership, and is a multiple-time founder with is currently co-founding and the CEO of Peer, whose vision is to build the world's first database of skills data for AI training. He is also the host of the Founders Unplugged podcast and the author of the handy little book of sales terminology. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's a bit of a mouthful, that introduction, isn't it? My very first business, have I just pressed something? No, that's fine. My very first business that I decided to run when I was a teenager failed, obviously, because I was like 14. It was a body jewellery company, of all things. I wanted to sell body jewellery online. At the time, I had close to 20 body piercings myself, so it made sense. I was kind of the face of the brand. I've obviously grown up a little bit since then, as you can tell, well, in some ways. It failed because I was a teenager, but also I didn't really understand what launching a business meant. And we will get to that. That's the point of me talking to you today. The second business that I decided to run did okay for a couple of years. It then eventually failed for different reasons, not because I didn't know so much what I was doing. I definitely learned a thing or two by then. More just because I lost interest in it. And that was a music production company. We put on live music shows, we put on open mic nights, and we were one of the first businesses at the time, or organizations at the time, to start streaming live gigs online through various platforms like MySpace. If anyone remembers that here, put your hand up. Does anyone remember MySpace? Oh, good. That makes me feel a bit better. And that failed after a few years, not because, like I said, we didn't know what we were doing, but because I got bored. Then after that, the next business was called the Fan Art Farm, and that was me painting and selling my paintings. There's a theme here, as you can probably get. I used to be a lot more creative than I am now. Getting married and have kids will do that to you. We used to sell artwork, and there was a group of us as artists that would paint and go to Comic-Cons. We mostly focused on fantasy and sci-fi and comic book art and all that kind of stuff. And that did pretty well for a few years. And then that failed after a while. But again, not because the business necessarily failed, but because I got bored and moved on. You're probably sensing a theme here, and I imagine that there's probably quite a few of you out there that might find that they have something in common with me, especially if you're here for a talk about, launching a startup. And that is that individuals like us, for the most part, entrepreneurial individuals, people who are up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning with another business idea and they've got to put it down on the notes memo in their phone, are likely to get bored pretty damn quick of things and move on. Call it ADHD, call it founder syndrome, call it whatever you want. I personally don't give a crap about what those labels are. I just know that it is something that does need to be managed, because if you don't manage it, you'll never actually launch anything. So, by show of hands, who here has a business idea? Okay, so then what are the rest of you doing here? No, sorry, what was that?
Business or a business idea?
Business idea, business idea. Business idea, something that you want to launch, haven't got round to it yet. How many? Okay, cool. And for the rest of you who has a business? All right, so we've got a fairly even split. Those that have a business will know that the number one most important part of running a business, or let alone launching it, is revenue. So with my background, spending 15, 20 odd years after I'd done all those crazy businesses, I spent that time building and scaling sales and marketing teams. That experience was really, really valuable, because it taught me that really the number one rule in really managing to build or scale any successful business has to be cash flow. And that sounds kind of obvious when you say it out loud. If you don't have money, you can't survive. But it's a biggest mistake that I see in speaking to and by the way, the title of this talk is slightly out of date. I gave the suggestion of the name of this talk to Donna, who runs the show, ages ago, like a year ago, and it said my experience working with 500 plus founders. It's actually closer to 1,000 now. Not to brag, I'm just making that point because, maybe it become more apparent towards the end of this when I talk about the pro bono work I do. But I make that point because it's directly related to what I'm really wanting to focus on now, which is that most businesses or individuals that I speak to early on the number one question they tend to ask me is, how do I market my business? And every single time I hear that, I just want to say, shut the fuck up. You don't market a business that doesn't exist yet. You market a business that already exists and you need to scale it. Marketing is like going to a casino. This is how I always describe it. If you go to a casino, if anyone ever has been here to the roulette table or played poker, you know if you're going to that casino, you should be going there with money in your pocket you're prepared to lose. It is not about getting a return on investment immediately. Marketing is a long game. You're investing and you're refining your messaging, you're refining SEO, you're refining your audience. It takes a long time. And if anyone in here owns a marketing business or knows anything about digital marketing, they'll know it takes a long time before you start seeing returns on that investment. So to come to a business mentor or advisor, especially in the startup world, and say, how can I market my business idea, is really insulting. What you should be doing at that point is focusing purely, as I always say in all of these conversations, on sales. So I want to talk to you about what that means, because sales can sound like a bit of a scary term. Who here, when I say the word sales, thinks of a door-to-door window double glazing salesman or a car salesman? Feel free to put your hands up if that's true. Oh, okay, that normally gets a much bigger reaction. So what do you think of when I say sales?
Yeah, aggressive marketing.
Oh, okay.
Selling.
All right, so, okay, fair enough. What about you? What do you think of when I say sales?
I think of property. I used to sell new homes, so
Okay.
the whole selling spiel.
I'll be honest, do you not do that anymore?
No.
Okay, good, so I can insult that trade then. I honestly hope that is one of the first jobs that AI takes. I do not understand why if I want to buy a person's home, I can't buy it from that person that owns the
But
home.
this is new homes, so you're buying.
I'll let you on.
into development.
Okay, I'll let you on.
Not
I'll let you
estate
on.
agents.
What about the people that built the home? Why can't I buy it from them?
Like
Anyway, this is a different
homes.
subject. We'll talk about this later and I'll vent my frustrations on you. But yes, anyone else? What about you? What do you think of when I say sales?
B2B sales.
B2B sales, why is that? You sound like you've got some experience there.
The company I work for is. we
Who's
do a lot of
that?
B2B sales. It's a US based startup.
No, you're on the spot now. Who is it?
They're called Gitcoin.
Okay, don't know who they are.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you think of B2B sales. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're a little bit more on the lines of what I'm thinking. When we start talking about sales then from the perspective of a business idea, a lot of people don't realize, because they think of marketing, you can sell an idea. And so quite often when I'm working with startup founders, of various types, by the way, when I say the word startup founders, most people think of your Jeff Bezoses, your Elon Musks and so on. But actually this is much broader. I would consider even a small agency, marketing agency, a startup. I would consider someone setting up their own estate agency, a startup. Really, we should be using that term a little bit more broadly. But the idea is when you have that idea, you can start selling it much earlier than you realize. And actually, it should, ideally, be doing more than just selling your idea to get future potential customers, building up an early stage of your pipeline. It should be helping you get a better understanding of what that idea is. So, the number one sort of path that I tend to put most of my clients on, both paid and pro bono, which I will explain a bit more towards the end, is the path to idea validation through sales. So what that basically means is going out into the world with your idea, talking to as many people about that idea as possible, ideally those who are your ideal target market. However, you are unlikely to know what that is straight away, so just vaguely what your ideal target market might be. Ask them to disprove your thesis. Now this is really, really important. As human beings, we love our ideas. Right? Most of the time, we can be pretty hard on ourselves too, but the chances are that if we're going out to speak to people to ask for feedback, we're probably going to bias that feedback by the way that we ask for feedback in of itself. Just, it's natural. So instead of saying, tell me why this is crap, we'll say, do you think this is a good idea? That's an awful question to ask. Never ask anyone, is this a good idea? They're going to probably say, yes, and they might say but then probably you'll stop them after they've said yes and you can hear the but coming, right? So the best way to approach it is through what I would say is more of the scientific method, which is to try and go out there and disprove your thesis. Your thesis is, I have this idea, I believe it solves X problem for Y types of people. Maybe there's multiple types of people, but ideally just one. I want to go out into the world and I want to find as many people as possible to disprove that thesis as much as I can, as much evidence as I can to show me why that idea is terrible, not the other way around. Now, along that way, you will meet people who will be a good fit, and as part of the sales process, you should be asking for some sort of commitment at that time. As soon as you encounter someone that says, actually, despite your attempts for me to tell you how crap your idea is, I'm still convinced it's great. I would, if you were to launch this, I probably would buy it from you. At that moment in time, you get their email address, you get their telephone number, you get their mother's maiden name, their national insurance. No, you just get their basic information, and you get them somewhat committed to purchasing from you when you have launched. That is called pipeline. For those that aren't, hip on the terms used in sales. That is your early pipeline. That is your funnel. Along that way as well, you will find that the words that you were using, the sentences you were using, the way that you describe your idea, the way that you describe your business, the problem, the types of people you address, all will change over the course of that process too. It could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years. But every single part of what you do will change. And there is something that is really important to do, in my opinion, along that journey to keep track of that no one does. And it's really, really detrimental. It is to make a log of what you experience throughout that period of time so that you have a record of it and you can tangibly look day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, what you have experienced throughout that time and how your thinking has changed. And the way to do that, I think, the simplest and most effective way is to create a founder diary. Every single one of the 1,000+ founders I've worked with over the years, no matter their seniority, fresh out of college, whatever, I will insist that they will create a founder diary. And that is just a Google document. They create a shortcut on their phone. I have my own, a shortcut to that document on their phone. And every day they will have it open on their computer, their laptop, wherever they are. And every single day, at any given moment, a stream of consciousness type approach is to add something to that list. And it could be that you've just had a really interesting call with someone that you're trying to disprove your thesis to. And they give you a little bit of information that you hadn't quite thought of before. Add it on. There might be a word that you used 2 months in, or a phrase that you've used 2 months in, that you hadn't used before, that makes somehow the communication of your idea just that little bit clearer. Make a note of that. Make a note of every single thing, however you can, at whatever time of day it is. I am quite often on my phone at 4 a.m. when I can't sleep and something pops into my head. It could be an idea as well. It could be more ideas. That's fine too, but try and stay focused on one at a time. I can tell you that from personal experience. Body piercing didn't really take off. That you will just consistently add to this thing and try and make it stream of consciousness. And don't worry about structuring it. I know that there are a lot of you out there that probably really like pretty documents, right? I can tell you, you like pretty documents. Yeah, I can tell. Just by looking at you, I can tell. I've got to go read on people. Don't worry about bullet pointing, formatting, and all that kind of stuff. Just get it all out, because the great thing about the world we live in now is not only does the Control F function exist, so you can pull up every single mention of the word sales, every single mention of the word marketing, every single mention of the word operations, pull all those out and use those as the foundation of your operational playbooks in future when you hire people, when you grow the team, when you're looking for investment, whatever it might be. But you also have AI. You can download that document into a PDF anytime you like, feed it into something like Perplexity or Claude, and get it to pull out a ton of stuff and build those documents for you if you don't want to do them manually, or just give you some insight. The other way to do it now as well, which has changed a little bit since I was originally giving this advice, is we can actually use AI directly. We could, subscribe for a ChatGPT account and just talk to it directly. I've now started playing around with that on the app, having my headset on and just having AI constantly listening to me throughout the day. It's an interesting experiment. I'm going to see how it goes, but I just tell it to listen actively first thing in the morning and don't stop listening until I tell you at the end of the day. And I want you to just listen and take notes of anything I say to you that might be kind of semi-important. And so I'm trying that out. I'll see how it goes. My only concern with that is that I don't have that data on my document. It's then on ChatGPT, so I'll see how that gets. So I'm still using my document. Anyway, back to the point. Why is this really useful? So I've laid out the fact that it's very useful for future potential documentation you might need. It's obviously very useful for seeing how far you've come, how far that idea's progressed. But there's a few really important bits to bear in mind as it directly relates to sales. Sales, as a profession, is simply the mastering of the art of communication. That's all it is. It's not about manipulation, or at least it shouldn't be. When you think about people who are being hard-hitting, they're not salespeople. We call them assholes. They are not salespeople. Manipulation tactics is not part of sales. Negotiation is. That's different. But negotiation is simply about the art of argument. Argument in the old sense of the word argument, not the new sense of it. And the ability to exchange ideas and to present people with new information and ask them to change their perception on something based on those new ideas. So really, the more you're talking and the more you're cataloging and writing what you do, you're going to notice very, very quickly that your thought process changes, the way that you communicate changes, the way that you process new information changes, and of course the way that you even catalog that information changes. And that's all going to feed back into itself. So you'll realize that the first time that you ever explained your idea to someone versus the last time are going to be entirely different. I guarantee you probably use way more words at the beginning than you do in the end. For example, the introduction earlier of me explaining my startup, it took us 2 years to distill it down into that description of the fact that our mission is to try and build the world's first database of AI skills data for AI training. Before that, it was like that long. Incredibly complicated. We learn over speaking to people again and again and again and again that there was a better way of communicating our idea. And this is coming from someone that's done it for years. I still get it wrong all the time. And I still work with clients, and it takes a very long time to get it as well. What are the other benefits, though? The other benefits are, what are they? I forgot what they are. Oh yes, there is another one. So there is a small crossover between sales and marketing, despite how horrible I was being to marketing earlier. But that's actually more along the lines of social selling. We always constantly hear about our personal brand, right? How many people are sick of hearing that term? The personal brand, I don't think is as important as social selling itself. There's a great local guy called Nick Rayburn who talks a lot about social selling, good friend of mine. I highly recommend you follow him on LinkedIn if you haven't already. And really, it's an anti-personal brand approach. The approach is about education. It's about putting out content that's entertaining, informative, and more importantly, speaking to your ideal customer profile. One amazing thing about creating a document that puts all of your thoughts on is that when it comes time to thinking, what should I write about on LinkedIn today, you've got a well to pull from. And you can literally put that into ChatGPT, the basis of that, the sort of granular part of that idea, and say, this is the nonsense I was talking about to you at 2 o'clock in the morning yesterday, turn this into some ideas for blog posts, and boom, there you go, right? It's a foundation for your content marketing playbook, essentially. And content marketing does have a place early on, just not too early on. So that's something that I strongly, strongly advise from the sales perspective. There is one other thing as well, which I suppose is kind of difficult to always necessarily achieve, but is certainly worth investing in, and that is to try and do what I'm doing right now, wherever possible. Take every opportunity that there is to speak in front of a group of people, to put yourself out there in awkward social situations. And what I often say to young people is they actually have much more of an advantage over us because of they still go out drinking. And that's not something that I do anymore, but that definitely was a time in my life when my confidence was probably the highest. I think, as you get older, at least, you have kids or you get married and you start staying at home and you don't enter into as many social situations, especially those that involve strangers and speaking to people and having to convey your ideas and introduce yourself. You can lose that skill a little bit. Your muscle gets a bit weakened on that front. So absolutely put yourself in those situations of speaking as much as possible in front of audiences, to absolute strangers, whether that's for networking events or just asking, can I speak at this event? Do it, because all of that is the art of communication. All of that will help you sell, because ultimately that's what you need to do to start your business, sell. So to come back to the beginning a little bit before I kind of conclude with some of my other thoughts on this, and maybe leave you with some more practical next steps if you've got a business idea or you're looking to scale a business you're in or whatever it might be. When it comes to selling your idea, there are some very, very simple ways of doing that. After you followed my advice of speaking to people to try and disprove your thesis, etc., etc., most ideas can be sold through a waiting list. If you've got an idea, you'll be surprised how many people are actually willing to pay money to join a waiting list, or join a community, or just get an early bird price. Right? We've all seen it on events. Like some of you probably bought early bird tickets for this event, but last year, when the event hadn't started yet, early bird tickets were sold. It happens all the time. People need to have proof of concept. They need to know that people want something, and that's the way to do it. Money talks. So don't be deterred by thinking that no one will pay for your idea. You might be surprised, but you do need to go out there and just validate that idea through sales conversations. And then I want to wrap it up a little bit by talking about what I do and why this is titled what it is, I suppose, more than anything, this talk. So, as I mentioned, I have worked with easily over 1,000 founders at this point, and that's probably 50-50 paid versus pro bono. The reason why I do pro bono work, as I was talking about earlier, is because there is a problem in our space, I believe, a big problem in our space of there being an enormous amount of bullshit, hence why I'm known as the No Bullshit Advisor. And part of that is largely down to there being an enormous amount of people looking to try and get as much out of you as possible, the snake oil salesman, and they don't really have the experience to back it up. But more importantly, it's extraordinarily expensive. Even the good quality, real advice from people with the experience is extraordinarily expensive. I personally see that to be incredibly unjust. It tends to price out most people who need it the most. As well, the individuals who maybe, I usually think of poverty as a really important factor here. Those that do not have access to the information, they don't have access to the institutions, they don't have access to the finances to be able to, or even be in the same room a lot of the time as where these conversations are happening. So I provide a lot of pro bono work for that. I give everyone an hour of my time, literally everyone, which can keep me a little busy, as you can imagine. But I think it's totally worth doing, and it's amazing the ideas that I come across and the incredible individuals that I meet by doing so. But the reason why I mention this more than anything is because of, aside from the main sort of question I get asked being about marketing, which really pisses me off, I can't explain. Aside from that being that one, the number one thing that I find is most detrimental to founders is that they don't speak to other founders at all. How many of you in here are business owners again? Let me see by show of hands. Okay, I know you. What business do you run?
A software agency in Brighton.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Which one?
They're called Dab Apps. We're sponsoring.
Dab
today.
Apps. Yeah. I'm familiar with you. So you're sponsoring today. Excellent. Well, thank you for coming here. Of all the places you could be, I appreciate it. Hope I'm not letting you down. Dab Apps. Okay. So then you'll most certainly understand the value of networking. So I'm going to put the spotlight on you a little bit, and we did talk about this on a panel a moment ago. But why do you believe speaking to other founders is important?
I think it helps feel like you've got a network of people who are going through similar experiences.
Right.
I think it helps generate ideas and takes you out of the kind of day-to-day running of a business. It's like peer support, a kind of safe space.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's also always really important, I think, to speak like I'm a woman in tech, to coin Mary's term, an accidental woman in tech.
How can you be an accidental woman? I don't understand
that. Okay, that bit not.
We'll talk about that later. I'm curious.
Yeah, I think it's also really key to talk to other women in similar sectors and in similar positions. I think it's kind of stepping out of the day-to-day, getting peer support, having a safe space, being inspired, and probably meaning you can be a bit more creative and generate ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. And the reason why I wanted to ask someone out here on that is because more often than not, the first part of that answer is usually the same, which is the support side of things. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I bring that up is because most of my mentoring sessions, most of my coaching sessions, advising sessions, I've discovered I probably should have gone into a different industry. I probably should have become a therapist. Because running a business is really lonely. It really is. And it's actually the reason why I started my podcast, very, very selfishly. because I found that, especially working from home now, like many of us do, stuck indoors all day. Some of us don't have the luxury of like a separate space away from the dog, the kids, the husband, the wife, whatever. And it can be pretty crazy, to be in that environment and not particularly relaxing. But even if we do have that, and we do have that luxury of that, it's still very isolating. And yes, we can be speaking with people all day in meetings, this, that, and the other. If that's our position, we've got to bear in mind for some people, they don't have that type of role. Sometimes they can be more technical and they're very rarely speaking with people face to face or on the phone or in meetings. But either way, it's just a really isolating thing. And beyond all of that, it's isolating just because even if you are speaking with people all the time, even if you do have people around your house all the time and you go out drinking all the time and you whatever, and you're very, very social, very few people in your life will really understand the things that you are going through as a business owner. The fact that one moment you'll be elated because you've just closed a deal or secured a customer or got some great feedback on something, and the next minute something goes wrong and falls over. It's up and down every minute of every day. And that's a really, really lonely thing to go through. And the stats on this are incredibly shocking. The fact that the depression and the anxiety and all of the other disorders are through the roof for startup founders and business owners is absolutely shocking. And that is really one of my driving forces behind why I do what I do, but also why I really encourage everyone that the number one step, in my opinion, for launching your business isn't just about all the sales stuff that I mentioned, but it's more importantly about going out there and building up a solid network of founders, business owners that you admire, that you trust, that you can get along with. But more importantly, that if you do have a dead body to move at 5 o'clock in the morning, you can call them and they'll help you move it, right? That is important. It's not just good enough to have, your mate from rugby or hockey or cheerleading club to help you with that. You need a founder to do it, because they'll not only do it, they'll do it in a way that they'll make sure you never get caught, because they're smart. But no, seriously, it's very, very important. So I strongly advise on doing that. And I think that honestly, that underpins everything else, because of all of the other challenges you've got to go through, and all of the bullshit that people like me talk about, of all of the advice, and this is what to do, this is a book to read, and all the steps. Honestly, you're going to solve all those problems and every challenge that comes across, you come across, because you're surrounded by people smarter than you, right? It's that simple. If you're not sure what to do in that moment, because of the thing that really peeved me off around advisors is that they try and give, which I'm guilty of to some extent right now, standard boilerplate off-the-shelf advice. And the truth is, every single founder, every single individual is incredibly unique. Obviously, we're human beings. Their situation is different. Their business is different. What they want to achieve is different. Everything is different. So really, the only way to know for sure what is right for you at that particular moment for you is to speak with someone at that time who knows you. That's it. And it could be someone like me who's an advisor, but ideally it's a friend, because I think friends offer far more value because they really have your interests at heart. So that's my advice for what it's worth. I try to be the no bullshit advisor. Maybe I spat a load of bullshit today. I don't know. You will have to be the judge. But we've got a couple of minutes left. Does anyone have any questions about anything I've said today? I'm more than happy to take them. Yes, go ahead.
I have a question about the founder diary.
Yes.
From your experience, maybe how often do you revisit it or review it? How do you go around like analyzing it? Because I can see myself writing it, but then just never going back to read.
Yeah, not enough as much as I should. The thing is, it's okay if you don't. I don't think. I think, because actually in reality, the process of doing it can be just as important as reviewing it. Finding a process to and giving yourself some sort of tradition. Right, giving yourself these regular things to do are incredibly important as a founder, because you get so easily pulled in so many different directions. So even just having a thing that says to you, for X amount of time a day, I'm going to do this, is really, really good. And once you get to a point where the company is starting to scale and maybe you can employ some other people, I guarantee you'll remember then. Because once you hire your first salesperson or your first ops manager or whatever, and they're going to be saying, have you got a sales playbook or have you got an ops playbook? You're going to go, oh shit, oh wait a minute, yes, I kind of do. Give me a couple of hours, and then you'll go and sort it out. So it's okay if you don't revisit it all the time. That's all right.
Sorry.
That's all right, no worries. We'll talk about this later. So yeah, to answer your question, it's absolutely fine, but I think you'll be surprised actually how much you do revisit it, because actually when you add to it, sometimes you'll just be maybe a bit curious and you'll have a look at the last day or whatever. So.
Thank you.
No worries. Anyone else? That's good. It means I covered everything. So, oh, okay.
So how do we apply for a 1 hour?
It's on my LinkedIn. Come and see me afterwards if you want it. Yeah, there's just a link and you book it and it's yours. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But just be prepared. It's no bullshit advice for a reason. I don't hold back. All right. Cool. Thank you very much.